Hi there, my name is Joel Mara. I am an artist working and living in Western Canada, and today I want to talk about this piece. This is a very large piece. This is about as large as I usually paint, unless I get a commission for something or someone wants something larger. So this will go to a commercial gallery in Edmonton. Um, it's 40 by 60 inches, and it's oil on canvas, which I mostly work just oil on canvas. And I've applied the paint pretty heavily, so it's got a lot of ridges and stuff. When it dries, it's got a lot of texture. And you can see that best when you shine a light almost kind of directly above it. You can see these little shadows and stuff. You'll see that a bit more in the demo when I zoom in to show you that. So this piece took quite a long time to complete, mostly because of this mountain here. This mountain had a lot of facets in it, and I had to choose to eliminate a lot of the detail in there, but it's still got a lot of detail. The light is coming from here, so you've got shadow in here, 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 and then these faces are lit up, and that gives the mountain a lot of volume. It looks more real that way. It looks like there's space in the painting, which I really enjoy. So that's what took me the longest, that mountain. We could talk about composition first. So composition, you've got these beautiful vertical trees going through almost the entire painting, starting from way down here and shooting up off of the page, or off the frame. They create kind of like this little lattice work, and through that you see this mountain, and your mind imagines that there's a lot of space between these trees and that mountain. It again creates a lot of volume in the piece. We've got this beautiful kind of a shoreline of the lake going through most of the piece here, and it's being intersected again by these verticals and creating these little shapes, which I really enjoy. And as a painter, I'm only trying to please myself. I'm not trying to please anyone else. Just if I can please myself, I figure somebody else will like the work. So, yeah, and then we could talk about color. Okay, so mostly I've used Prussian blue and white in the sky, but down here, closer to the horizon, I've added a little bit of Naples yellow. So for these hues, they turn yellow in the fall, and they really light up a hill beautifully. So for them, I've used cadmium yellow and yellow ochre mixed together. And for the rest of the trees, I've used mostly chromium green. Chromium green is a very strong green, and it mixes well with other colors. For the lake, I've used turquoise, and I've mixed it with some white. Turquoise usually comes out of the two pretty dark, darker than you can use on a lake, unless it's something like a night scene or something. So I've mixed white, and I've mixed more white here, and then going down this way, a little bit less white. And then in here we've got mostly just grays, with a little bit of yellow ochre, a little bit of green. And then in here, in this hill, just before the mountain, I've used some blue. It's called haloing, and you add a little bit of blue to something that's distant, blue and white, and that's like the air. There begins to be a lot of air between you and what you're seeing, and that so there's humidity in the air, and it ends up being this kind of bluish effect. I'm sure you've seen it when you've looked at something that's far away. So that's happening here, and I've got that happening in here a little bit too, especially in the shadows. We're starting out here with Naples yellow and white, and maybe a little bit of blue. I often like to start with the sky because the sky dictates the color of everything else in the painting. So the yellow light will be spilling down on the water, a little bit on the trees. So yeah, try starting with your sky. And in this case, I'm having to go around a lot of trees. because I've got trees going up into the sky. That's a little bit finicky, but yeah, just have a go at it. It's a little complicated at first, and there's a lot of lines and a lot of tracing. I use two different sizes of brushes here. I use a 01, a very small brush, to paint around the complex tree shapes that are going up into the sky. And then for the larger sky areas, I'll use a larger brush, like say a number 4 filbert. As you can see, I've painted the lake, but I forgot to actually record a video of me painting the lake, so you can see that in a later video. So here I'm mixing Prussian blue and white for the sky. Now I'm starting in on the snowbanks and the glaciers. The snowbanks get caught in the corners of the mountain. I'm using mostly just a white for this. Sometimes I'll add a little bit of blue, so I guess you could call it a white blue. The shapes of these are pretty interesting to me, the way snow gets caught in a mountain. And here you have snow and shadow. So for snow and shadow, just add a little bit of blue, and in some cases you can add a tiny bit of black as well. You'll notice that when I'm mixing, I I really scrape the sides of the pile of paint so that it doesn't spread out too much. I want it to stay in one small little area. Also, I'm using tin foil to cover my palette because I don't want paint to build up on it. You'll notice here that there's some smudging on the canvas. That's a mistake that I made, and I just wiped it off with a cloth. If you really want to clean it pretty good, you can use a little bit of turpentine on your cloth. But that's the great thing about oils. You can wipe them off. They stay wet for about 24 hours, sometimes even longer. And you can just wipe it off and start again. And here you can see I'm painting right now the light facet of the mountain with a kind of a yellowish gray color. Now this facet is in shadow, so it's getting a darker gray to go along with the kind of a darker bluish snow.
As you can see, I've decided to add quite a bit of detail to this rock. I mean, you can always add more detail, you can add less, but that's the amount that I've added, and it was quite a bit, and it took a long time to finish. I'm pretty happy with this mountain now. I'm really enjoying looking at it. So that's what I want. Now I'm painting the mountain between the branches of the trees. And I've got quite a bit of detail in here, so this is again pretty finicky work. You've got two different kinds of shapes happening here. You've got the cloud shapes, and then you've got the tree shapes, and they seem to be mixing together. But later on, it'll become evident which is which. Now I'm starting in on the larches, which are kind of a deciduous conifer, and they turn this beautiful yellow in the fall. I'm using cadmium yellow and yellow ochre to paint those. Wow, it's really shaping up now. I'm liking this. Here I'm using a pretty fine brush to do this work because I want it to look like individual trees from a distance. So a 0 or a number 1 brush is good for that. Here I'm painting the yellow larches that are across the lake, and they are behind the foreground trees. Here I'm painting some trees at the far side of the lake, and because they're so far away, they've actually got a lot of moisture and air between them and your eyes, so they actually will look blue. So I've added a lot of blue to this color. It's got chromium green, but a lot of blue as well. Okay, standing back to take a look, I really like what I see. You'll notice that these trees actually have a light side and a dark side. When trees get a little bit closer and you want to show some detail, you'll have to put a light and a dark side to the trees. All I've got left now is the foreground. So finally I've come to painting the foreground trees. And the left side of these trees are going to be in the light, since the light is coming from the left. And the right side of the trees are going to be in a bit more of darkness. And this gives the trunk a rounded look. I've mixed up maybe 3 or 4 colors of green, starting from a light green where I've mixed chromium green with yellow ochre and maybe a little bit of white, to chromium green with a little bit of black. And so that's my range of colors in green, and I'm going to be using those to make the light and shadow areas in the trees. That horizon line is looking really nice. This is my favorite painting shirt, and it's also proof that I'm Canadian. So notice here that the foreground trees are darker than the background mountain. It's important to have a little bit of contrast there so that everything is visible. Well, no, look at the facets of that mountain. Because there's some that are in light and some in dark, you get a lot of volume in there. All I've got left now is these rocks in the foreground, and the painting will be done. You'll notice the rocks have facets, and the facets, some of them will be lit up, and some of them will be in shadow, again, determining where the light is coming from. So everything should be consistent with your light and shadow. My dog needs several breaks a day, so I take him out in the backyard for 5 minutes and we just play around. I always enjoyed painting rocks. Rocks is another fun thing to paint. They're interesting geometric shapes, and you kind of have to understand how their structure works. They've often got fracture lines that go a particular way, and so it's nice to study rocks for just a little bit before you paint them. And here it is, a completed piece. I'm pretty happy with it. So come visit me on Instagram.